This is the Leadership in Insurance podcast, brought to you by FinPro Search Partners.
Insurance companies are businesses and they need to look for the long term and be sustainable.
We went from 0 to 1 and now it's going from 1 to 100.
Insurance as a concept, as a kind of service, is brilliant. The execution is what we're looking at now.
I think the companies that are going to succeed are the ones that are going to understand and master the art of intent.
When we talk about innovation, we lean too heavily to think about technology and we don't think about creating a culture of innovation.
I think innovation is essentially continuous improvement of existing processes and platforms and product.
Right? It's got to be easy. It's got to be seamless.
Good morning and welcome to the Leadership in Insurance podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bond, and I'm very lucky today to be joined by Sam Broomer, who is President Embedded Solutions at NormanMax. Sam, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing fabulous today. Thanks so much, Alex. Happy to be here and happy to share with you and your audience.
Brilliant. We were very lucky to meet each other very briefly in passing by our mutual friend, Doug, in Columbus. And I was really excited to have you on. NormanMax is a business that I've been aware of, mainly because of some of the work we've been doing in the parametric space. Yeah, really excited to kind of get into that story. But I'm coming from a position of knowing you and knowing the business, but obviously others may not. So it'd be great if you could introduce yourself and obviously the NormanMax business.
Yeah, happy to do so. So it's an amazing thing to think about and even worse to say, but I've been in this business for 32 years now, which is a wild thing to me. So having left undergraduate school in 93, kind of fell into the insurance and reinsurance business. But not surprisingly, and as many folks who are in the business and space know today, it's an amazing place to be. It does so many good things for people. It's so rewarding personally and professionally that this kind of falling into the space has been great. So 32 years doesn't feel like 32 years for sure.
Yeah.
I spent some time with some big carriers. I worked at HSB Group in Hartford and London for a while. Spent some time at FM Global. That was a great organization as well. Did some time at WR Berkeley where I helped with innovation, strategy, and reinsurance. And today I'm president of NormanMax Insurance Solutions. NormanMax Insurance Solutions is an MGA based in Miami, Florida. And unlike other MGAs or many MGAs, we have dedicated capital for our business. Lloyd Syndicate, NormanMax 3939, is where our capital comes from. So it's part of our organization at the holding company level. Lloyd's is an amazing organization. I continue to learn so much about the Lloyd's business every time I engage with my colleagues in London, because it's very much different than how we conduct business here. But with that A+ rating, access to 80 countries, 220 territories, our parametric business is a global business. My role at NormanMax is I help with our embedded solutions, our reinsurance solutions, and with our sales and distribution team. We offer flood capabilities, principally around an IoT device and a recent acquisition, Flood Flash, from the UK, as well as earthquake and hurricane products. We most recently brought on an expert in the weather space, did a lot of weather derivatives trading that is, of course, and he's bringing those capabilities to our parametric insurance components. So just an amazing place to be. Parametric, to me, has great product market fit, most importantly, timing. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, as we get to know each other during this conversation.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam. I love the parametric space. I've made no bones about that, and been lucky to work on quite a few parametric businesses in the FinPro search business. So it's a space I've got to understand. In fact, going for drinks with some of the Flood Flash team tomorrow. Actually, hopefully it's in the diary.
That's great.
Yeah. So let's talk about the founding teams. It's quite an impressive founding team, and I think this kind of bleeds into the conversations I've been having most recently about the sort of the look and shape of founding teams has changed, and it was more kind of like tech focused people coming in and then adding insurance knowledge. This is a very steeped in insurance, esteemed group of people, and I wondered how important they were for you being part of the NormanMax business.
Yeah, very important indeed. I do recognize there's a lot of fabulous people building interesting tech and solving for parametric as an opportunity. This group really has great experience in the insurance and reinsurance business. So our founder, Brad Meyer, was founder, chairman, and CEO of Universal Property and Casualty. That's an organization in Florida, which became the state's largest non-governmental homeowners insurer. That team that he built principally came from that organization. And about 10 years ago, saw an amazing opportunity to form an MGU to promote parametric solutions. So that team is still intact today under the NormanMax brand. Having that rich background in insurance is very, very important. We've seen a lot of insurtechs actually do some interesting work, but not necessarily get the scale that they need to be successful. We utilize technology. By definition, Parametric is a technology-rich and data-rich business, but we do so with the acumen of many years' experience in the insurance business. So I think we come with a good balance. I think initially in some of the insurtechs that were on the marketplace, you saw very tech-heavy founders trying to find a way to disrupt the insurance industry. That disruption maybe moved to enablement. And today, I see a lot of that activity around really just being the R&D for larger carriers and absorbing opportunities as they come to market and prove themselves to be successful. We, as a standalone entity with a very small cap table, very smart insurance folks that are using data and technology in a smart way, are able to utilize the relationships that we built over a long period of time to help with the adoption of these products and features. So it was paramount to work with a team that knew kind of what they were doing, and also tracks on my experience as well, working in the business as well as working in the tech space around insurtech and fintech.
Yeah, I think it speaks to that trend of like tech-enabled insurance rather than, insurance being a revenue arm of tech. That is kind of the other way around. And I think tech-enabled insurance, there's quite a few VCs that I know that are kind of insurance-specific people. And some of them have had pushback on the word insurtech as a whole. And for example, I might say, oh, digital MGA or tech-enabled MGA, and then one of them, Jonathan Crystal particularly, was like, Alex, they're just MGAs. And I was like, yeah, that's it. And it's I think he's right. I'm fighting against it probably because I've built my business around saying we do insurtech and innovation recruitment. But he pushed me and went, what does that even mean? I was like, good point. I think what's interesting about parametric space and particularly NormanMax is that lots of people have tried parametric, particularly in the last 5 years, but lots of parametric plays. They've had quite limited success. I think largely it's been a struggle. Why is NormanMax being particularly successful in this space?
Yeah, for sure. So two things real quick. I think this is just a great tangent. It's amazing you're with Adam and Ian later this week, or at least Adam, of course, from Fun Fudge. But you mentioned Jonathan Crystal. Jonathan Crystal was my 11:30 this morning. We actually met on the property topic. So you talk about a big business and a really small community. I literally was just with him before this call. So that is a fabulous bit of karma, if you will.
Yeah.
Your question is a great one, and one that I speak of very often. So the first challenge I think in the business for many folks that have come before me is the term parametric itself. It denotes something complex, and at one point in time, it was very complex. You would see policy forms with formulas in them, and it really made it difficult for commercial adoption. So the name itself denotes some challenge, if you will. In addition to that, the genesis of the business and how it kind of came up over time. I've always thought of Parametric in its founding days as a Sub-Saharan Africa, third world country, agrarian solution where traditional commercial indemnity products were not widely available or widely affordable. So whether it was through non-governmental entities, the United Nations, these small organizations that were local to these communities, that was really the genesis of it. So it had a very specific use case. But Alex, what was interesting from that point in time, in my experience, is that it jumped a whole portion of the market from there. It moved from that bespoke solution for agrarian and farming communities to transnational and multinational entities. So the buyers that were once in these places producing crops and who were concerned about rainfall or concerned about sunshine, that product then got repurposed for Fortune 1000 companies. Like Marriott is a great example. Marriott locations are everywhere the wind blows. And as such, they have very sophisticated risk managers, corporate risk structures, and they're buying these specific bespoke parametric products through sophisticated parametric brokers. So that market became pretty full, I think, in time. But what got missed was the middle market of commercial, the homeowners piece within the country. And a lot has changed in our society today. So we know there is a frequency and severity of events. I built a thesis around the availability and affordability of insurance relative to tech and climate. And availability and affordability really gets to the economic gap, which continues to widen. Those insured risks relative to the economic loss suffered by business and people. The biggest examples are around rising deductibles for homeowners and business interruption and extra expense without physical damage for businesses. So that is a real kind of market void and the market need. The other piece is that when you sell products that are not obligatory on a one-by-one basis, either working with retailers or brokers, that takes a very, very long time. My guess, that's a 5 to 8 year slug, and it's really hard to achieve scale. So if you're a startup in this organization, in this type of business, and we are not in our business, we are very well established with a very large Lloyd's business plan. But if you're a startup and you're working with venture capital funds to make things happen, that could be a challenge because selling things one at a time takes a very, very long time. And there's also the educational component. So if you think about moving from a risk taker or a carrier to a wholesaler to a retailer to an insured, there's a lot to get lost there. And if I'm the retailer or I'm the wholesaler and I don't necessarily understand what parametric is or how it solves the solution, how it solves the problem, I'm probably not going to talk about it. So adoption was very low for that subset as well. That is all changing now. I think there's amazing product market fit and timing. And what I'm focused on is taking these products and turning them into simple, easy to adopt features that you could put into a traditional indemnity insurance policy by way of an enhancement endorsement. That is how you achieve scale. That is how you help people. Just as a quick example, I think it's over 90% of the country does not have flood insurance. Watch something on the news the next kind of couple days. Something's always happening with flood. So people are not protected. Making it as a small part of an indemnity product where they already have solutions in place is a huge benefit for society. So those are some of the challenges, I think, historically of kind of how the business has grown up, where the business is today. And I think the solve really is for making these features in these traditional indemnity policies, as opposed to trying to sell the next policy, educate the next person, and allow someone actually to have the opportunity to enjoy a product versus purchasing a product.
I think that's the thing that resonates with me, and you and I talked about this, and I might jump ahead actually to about this because this is the embedded part of parametric, isn't it? Adding as a feature on existing policies, and I think for me, obviously, it's the unlock for distribution, so that's the one-to-many scale, but it also goes to this question of allowing you to delight the end consumer. Insurance has done a pretty bad job at delighting the consumer. There's been some obvious plays with it, kind of like, homeowners policies on kind of modern insurers, auto insurance with modern insurers, where great apps, great interaction. But in the real moments of peril, whether it be flood, whether it be business interruption, which is the one that's always resonated with me, it's like, get me a triggered product that gets me an automatic payout and it solves my kind of problem there and then you don't even need to worry about the education of the customer. It's embedded in their policy, but you get a chance to delight them. Out of nowhere, they go, by the way, that's just covered. We just paid out straight away. And I think we've missed that opportunity. So I find it fascinating that that's where NormanMax is playing, because I think that for me feels like the missing link between building products that people feel they need to have and building products that they're excited to have. What was the first product? Was it the homeowners policy? Was that the first product from the group?
Yeah, it started off with homeowners and small commercial in the hurricane space, principally in those areas where hurricanes are very prevalent. As the organization, as an MGA, is domiciled in Miami, quite a bit of business did flow from that state. But I think it's broader than that today, with quake exposures across the entire country, flooding exposures growing, and weather, a new capability within our organization, becoming very keen and thoughtful. So whether it's hail with farmers or open dealer lot, whether it's sunshine or temperature relative to growing crops, just lots of different opportunities to solve these bespoke challenges throughout the country for sure.
Yeah. Wanted to ask you, this probably goes a little bit back to what we were talking about earlier with the fundamentals of the team. In the world of insurtech, and I'm not putting NormanMax there, you've got a tech-enabled insurance business, but I think it's so relevant because it plays in that parametric space, and there's obviously proprietary tech, etc. there. Well, what I find interesting is the way that you present to the market is very good insurance fundamentals. And I wanted to ask you a question as a man who's been in the industry 32 years, um, and at some very impressive shops. Can we get a bit lost in the tech, do you think, when we're trying to push innovation, and the tech becomes almost paramount above good insurance?
Yeah, I think about that a lot, Alex. I think about two things. I think about the tech, what's needed versus what's available, and how do you
Mm,
prioritize that?
mm,
First and foremost, how does tech enable the customer journey and create customer satisfaction? Number one. Number two, how can it make your middle operations of your organization, kind of the middle of your P&L, more efficient? And that could actually be completely void of any interaction with an insured or with a broker. The real opportunity here is to delight customers, right? And that's not something, as you said earlier, that folks are typically accustomed to when it comes to insurance. So by using tech with that in mind, and also thinking from the outside in, right? I've been in lots of product development shops in the past and been part of some amazing teams where we've built some really thoughtful products, super supply side oriented. We know exactly what folks want. This is going to be the best thing ever. Folks are going to buy this because it is bought, not sold. It is sold, not bought. So they're really going to dive into this. And then we find out like, oh, there's like been no adoption. Why don't people care about this? So having the demand side first, really understanding what the persona is. So thinking about, who is the user of your product, who is the user of your solution, and does it really fit their problem? Because in the marketplace, if people are not trying to solve their problem, whatever that problem may be, actively solve it and not solving it well or not being able to solve it at all, then it's going to take you a very long time to get adoption, right? So I've structured my conversations to make sure we're solving some of those problems that consumers are having and businesses are having. Economic loss relative to insured loss, a changing climate, how tech can actually make the business better from a customer journey perspective. Think about being paid within a short amount of time after an event occurs. Think about the goodwill that creates from the carrier's perspective, the agent's perspective, like it literally is doing something that insurers may not expect. And because many insurers are not buying these solutions today on a one-off bespoke basis for the reasons we had discussed before, when they find out it's a feature in their policy, there is a sense of, I hope, delightment. I hope that delightment actually, resonates through the entire insurance community and maybe even make society a bit more litigious and reactive. Can you imagine? This is a real challenge in the country today. People don't love their insurance company. I think embedded parametric solutions as a feature to a traditional policy is a neutral to positive movement for any carrier, any agent, and a delighted insured when an event occurs and they have a real need and have a need right now.
mm. I think that the great opportunity of parametric, it removes any confusion. If X happens and is triggered, then Y is the payout, or or the result is that. And so there's a clarity there because I think most people, let's be honest, when they're buying insurance policies, even a small business owner or operating insurance, do I know the nuts and bolts of my insurance policy? Probably not very well. There's an opportunity for me to be kind of disappointed because the gap between my knowledge and what I'm looking at. So I think there's that. There's the kind of speed of payout. And so it addresses a lot of the when people complain about insurance, they typically my claim uh wasn't paid in full, so it was lower than I was expecting, and it was slower than I was expecting, and it didn't help me out. And then the transparency piece. That recently someone was complaining on a podcast I was listening to about their insurance had been sent. They said, "Oh, your insurance is renewing," and it was more expensive this year than last year. And they said there must be a reason for that, but there was no explanation included as to why. Is it insurance tax? Is it material costs? What is the reason why I've become more expensive as a risk than last year? So parametric addresses possibly not that third one, but it's that clarity that it provides and the speed, which really addresses what 99% of people's complaints are about insurance. And the lovely thing is, you can sell against that, but if you're embedding it, it's almost like this hidden benefit. And actually, you get to delight at the worst possible time when people really need our help. So, yeah, I'm a bit of an evangelist for the insurance industry. I have to be if I've got a podcast about it. But there's definitely something in it. Um, I wanted to go on and ask you, Sam, about the Lloyd Syndicate. Why? why have you gone for that structure? Why was it important to have a Lloyd syndicate? Because it's kind of an unusual way to play the game. But you know, I kind of have my view on it, but I'm interested to know from the outside in what's the purpose of that really?
Yeah, from my perspective, it's a huge opportunity, a competitive advantage for the organization.
Mm,
We have the good fortune of being the first and only Nat Cat dedicated syndicate within Lloyd's that is addressing these parametric products, features, and obviously providing solutions around them. Lloyd's provides great financial ratings. So, of course, you have an A+ rating from AM Best, you have excellent ratings from other rating organizations, and your access to capital is unparalleled. So, whether it's your syndicate manager or the syndication you have, the ability to syndicate additional capacity in a short amount of time, all of that is very, very important because as our business grows, our balance sheet will need to grow with it as well. So, having that access to capital as a privately held company is extremely important. Additionally, Lloyd's brings two other benefits that many of them are known. The first one is that the Lloyd's name is a very important one, and the ability for this organization to go through and obtain a Lloyd's syndication says a lot to the marketplace. It brings financial strength to a relatively young company. It brings access to capital in a very short amount of time. And most importantly, from a global perspective, it allows us to participate in the business on a worldwide basis. With 80 licenses in 220 territories, we see quite a bit of multinational and transnational business. So, although I am focused on the business in the United States, we as an entity at the holding company have this larger business around solving these bespoke opportunities and challenges for very large entities, governments, political subdivisions, and very large industrial operations. So, that access is paramount. And as we were talking before we got on the podcast, we're doing this over a screen today. I was happy to get to meet you prior in person, but the Lloyd's marketplace is a real rich in-person marketplace. So you get the opportunity to meet a lot of people, see a lot of opportunity, develop relationships and friendships. So that's really important. The overall wrapper I would put on this is the kind of the dichotomy of the flexibility and rigidity of our capital. The flexibility because we're part of Lloyd's, we have access to a lot of capital and growing our business. But the rigidity of the name, the rigidity of the ratings shows stability and allows us to work with many of the top 10, having conversations with many of the top 10 carriers today about providing them embedded solutions on a 100% reinsured quota share basis. If we were a startup organization or maybe just had one capacity provider as a front, that probably would not be the case. So our Lloyd's capacity is the foundation of our entire organization, and it's going to allow us to grow, thrive, and be in the business in multiple different ways from a distribution perspective. Really important from my perspective too, as I think about Lloyd's and distribution, I'm not a fan of binary outcomes. I like to de-risk opportunity investments. So the Lloyd's platform allows us to move into a distribution channel, find 3 or 4 different ways to do that. And for the ones that are not working, that's great. We just won't do that anymore. But for the ones we can double down on those opportunities. So we're taking away yes or no outcomes and creating a business that we otherwise would not potentially be able to build without that foundational Lloyd's presence.
mm. It's interesting to me about Lloyd's where I I don't know why in my head at the moment this shows me how much I don't read anymore and I just listen to podcasts all the time because I was about to reference something. I was going, I saw this on another podcast. I think it was Freddie Scarrett from Gallagher was talking about the thing we forget about Lloyd's is that it's easy to be cynical and in the history um, and think about Lloyd's as being this yes, historic stamp of quality. But we forget how innovative it is. Most of the most innovative risks are written out there. So it's completely bang on trend to have, a Nat Cat focused, parametric focused business kind of operating as a Lloyd's syndicate. So, it really kind of shows the world that, Lloyd's is open for business and open for interesting business as well. So I think that's great. Sam, I knew we'd do this. We'd like I could talk to you for another hour, but we're almost at time. But I always like to finish with a question about the future. What we're going to see in the next kind of 12 months from you guys, specifically kind of your part of the business, but maybe the broader NormanMax business as well.
Yeah, so I think a couple things. I think there's opportunities for carriers to have parametric features that sit alongside their traditional CAT programs. These typically renew on 7/1. That's going to ebb and flow with capacity in the traditional reinsurance marketplace. but opportunities to help with retentions, ventilation, where companies come back on risk within a tower, and second, third, fourth event covers. Like, really? Third, fourth event covers? Yeah, that's kind of happening these days. There's more opportunity for that given the changes in climate. So we're seeing more of that business. We expect to see more of that going forward. My ultimate objective is to lose the term parametric altogether and find a way to make these really thoughtful features that help everybody in the risk transfer chain do better, be better, and feel better about their insurance company and their interaction with everyone they work with in those ecosystems. So the embedded piece is going to be a very large part of our business. Very rarely do you get to the moon by looking down. So I look up quite a bit, and I really do think for us and the business we're going to build, this will be a multi-billion-dollar business for us. But as importantly, we are trailblazing to help other organizations and showing them the way. So the marketplace for what we're building actually will be a multiple of what we're doing here at NormanMax. And that's really what I'm most proud of, and what I'm most looking forward to, changing the customer journey in their traditional indemnity products to make them just a little bit better than they are today, and then seeing that spread across the entire globe with every single piece of risk transfer business going forward. You'll see more out of us with weather. You'll see more out of us, trying to solve other challenges around these natural catastrophe perils. Geez, it's a great question. I'm so fixated on the reinsurance and the embedded piece and the outcomes for society that I haven't given it a ton of thought. But I know NormanMax is going to continue to lead in this space, to do so in a collaborative way, transparently, in partnership with others. If you might have heard me say this before, for some folks that are listening, I've been very fortunate and very lucky in this business. And that's not because I'm the smartest guy on the screen. I can guarantee you I'm not. But I've been given lots of great opportunity to work with some really intelligent people and learn from them and make things better in the business. And that's what I plan to do. And I'm excited for the next 32 years. So it's a great ride. It's going to be even better going forward. And I'm looking forward to helping others. That's principally why I'm in this.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, and I love hearing that. It's on that mission to get people to fall in love with insurance, and I'm very much a believer in that. And I think we do a bad job at kind of educating the end consumer about why this is important and what it allows us to do. But I think that the transparency with which the kind of parametric, although I agree with you, it's like it should just be, there are certain parts of your policy that should just work that way, and I believe in that. But yeah, I think the clarity around kind of what it does for the end consumer is really, really important. Sam, I knew this would be a really enjoyable conversation, and I know you're a very busy man, so thank you so much for being a guest on the Leadership in Insurance podcast.
Happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to share some thoughts, and look forward to learning from your guests in the future.
Thanks, Sam.